Hello and welcome to Energy Insights. Today in the studio I've got Cuan Brown, EVP, SEFE, Head of Trading IT.
That's great.
Cuan, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Hi guys, I have actually worked for Avanade in my history. I'm a developer by trade, but through various mechanisms I've ended up heading up the trading IT department for SEFE, the SEFE organization. What that means is that we fundamentally look after the trading activity, and we're the technology partner for our trading business.
So I must ask, how's life on the other side of the fence?
It's a different set of pressures, as you're well aware. I think you have to focus more on the operational side of things, which is a unique challenge in a trading business because it never goes away 24/7. Lots of operational things that we have to take care of. So it's a different set of challenges, but it's also very rewarding as well.
Great, I'm glad you said that. So tell us, Cuan, a little bit about SEFE. I mean, it's a brand that hasn't existed for a long time. Let's put it that way. And 3 years before, it didn't really exist. So tell us a little bit more about SEFE. What do you do? What kind of commodities you trade? What do the volumes look like, and all?
So whilst we've had a checkered past, the organisation has redeveloped itself. SEFE stands for Securing Energy for Europe, and that's kind of the embodiment of what we look after. In the trading arm, we actually have two core businesses, or actually three core businesses. We have a sales arm centred in Germany and up in Manchester. We have a trading business centred in London, and we have offices in Singapore and the US. And we also have an infrastructure business as well. But what I'm mostly focused on is supporting the activity around trading, optimising the activity, and being the route to market for our sales businesses.
Okay, so what kind of commodities do you trade then?
That's a good question. SEFE focuses largely on gas and power and LNG. We have significant cargoes on the water, but we trade across Europe and the UK in gas and power, pretty much every market that you can think of. And we've moved into EUAs and a whole host of other things, and we have a big strategic investment in hydrogen as well that's underway and should deliver over the next couple of years.
So that's a big commodity set. What does the management of assets look like? How big is the portfolio in terms of volumes and trades?
It's a good question. I can't give you exact numbers of the trades. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands into the hundreds of thousands of trades annually. I think volume-wise, also quite difficult. We're an optimization company, so a molecule of gas, for instance, can go through our system up to 15 or 16 times. But I think holistically, we're probably looking at around 200 terawatt hours of gas and power annually.
Incredible. Yeah. That's big numbers. So I must ask this question, Cuan. You mentioned you're the EVP for trading IT. How is trading IT different from general IT?
It's a good question as well. Let me just give you a bit of an explanation of the organisation. Within our IT department, we have an enterprise IT function and infrastructure function that underpins kind of core features for the CFO and the group. We have a sales IT function that looks after the sales business, that does B2B, B2C, etc. Trading IT's prime reason for existence is to look after trading. And as you're well aware, trading is quite a fast-paced business, has lots of demands from a data and from a operational perspective. So I look after the tools, the teams, the people that support that trading business. And it's not just a trading business, we're also a logistics business as well. So we are active in multiple 27 power and I think 30 odd gas TSOs, or vice versa. We're active in all of those markets, and we need to support that 24/7. So all the people, tools and systems running 24/7 to support that activity.
Okay, brilliant. So in terms of the trading IT setup there, the question that leads on is the landscape of power generation is changing. The predictability around thermal assets is changing, less so predictable, and a flurry of renewable assets coming on with wind, solar, batteries and other forms. And what does that mean from a trading IT perspective? I'm guessing that may have an impact on trading volumes.
It's had a significant impact. The reality is, and for the listeners that don't potentially understand what that means materially, is when you have a wind asset like a wind turbine, if the wind changes suddenly, the activity from a technology perspective has to keep up with it. And that might be changing every 10 seconds, every 60 seconds, or a battery or a solar PV, etc. What that means materially is that as it changes, because it's unpredictable, your systems have to accommodate that, have to accommodate the changes. And what that materially means is that you see significant spikes in activity, data activity, etc., which then materially means that all of our systems that support that are seeing significant volume increases from trading perspective, from deal capture perspective, and from operational perspective. So it's putting our systems under significant data volume increases and at short order times as well, where it's unexpected as well.
So what is a trade life cycle? Because you sort of touched on it, right? Like when key events, the unpredictability of wind and solar plays out, that the influx of trade volumes goes up, and the trade volumes have to navigate your trade life cycle. So could you define for our listeners, what does a trade life cycle look like?
So before you make a trade, you need some information, some data analysts to review data around the market activity, wind, solar, demand profiles, forecasts, etc., to then support the trading teams on should we be trading a specific commodity? When should we trade? Should we be buying and selling? At that point in time, the trade is executed, it goes through exchanges or OTC, and then flows automatically through our systems, it's called STP, straight through processing, into our trade capture systems. And then from the trade capture systems, it goes into our ETRMs and downstream system to deal with operations and logistics, settlements, invoicing, risk management, regulatory controls, financial controls. So the life cycle has quite a few components. I think in our core deal life cycle, we have up to 400 applications that can play a part in it, but we probably have a core of 20 or 30 applications that support that trade life cycle.
So it's interesting you touched on ETRM there. What has been the role of an ETRM in a trade life cycle? Historically, it's been very much the centerpiece, the glue that brings the whole trade life cycle together, in fact, orchestrates the whole trade life cycle. Is that still the play? Yeah,
it's an interesting question, because I think the role of the ETRM in a modern trading landscape is changing. 20 years ago, when the work was largely screen-based activity, the volumes were low. I'm talking in the hundreds or low thousands of trades a day by screen-based trading. The ETRMs would pretty much do everything. It was a one-stop shop. It was considered your golden source of activity. I think the new world of trading doesn't entirely depend on an ETRM. That's not saying that we don't need an ETRM. The ETRM, which stands for Energy Trading Risk Management, performs our mark-to-market, so valuing our trading, our position, does risk assessment, and also helps us with things like invoicing and settlements and confirmations. So it still plays an important role. But over the last 10 years, a lot of us, not just SEFE, a lot of organizations have started taking chunks out of the ETRM when the market behaviors have driven a different set of requirements that an ETRM traditionally isn't capable of. So I do believe that the space of the ETRMs is changing dramatically. Where it goes, I think, is quite interesting. So that's something that we'll have to play out and see.
Okay, so contextualizing that further, then, how many ETRMs do you have?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that question. So SEFE has actually built two of its own bespoke ETRMs, one for power and one for LNG with some partners. And we also have a vendor-based ETRM as well, Ion Endure. So that looks after our gas commodities. I think it's fair to say that building ETRMs is hard. I would also say for an ETRM to reach maturity, you probably need 5 to 7 years. And it's something that is no longer a differentiator. I think it's just your base ticket to the game. So I think personally it's not something we really want to do, but obviously it's something we significantly dependent on.
Okay, so let's go back to the changing shape of the requirements around trade volumes. What does that mean from an ETRM perspective? I mean, the speed is going to be essential.
Yep.
Building something yourself with the regulatory landscape changing ever so often doesn't help you invest in the value, more so in just keeping up, right? So talk to us a little bit about how that landscape's changing.
So I think it's an important fact that you've picked out, because in the past, ETRMs didn't need to deal with high volumes of trades. And what we're seeing now is a paradigm shift in trading as the move to digital trading, algo trading, systematic trading has occurred. Not only are we seeing more data required to make decisions, so more curves, FX rates, vol surfaces, what we're also seeing is the volume of trades flowing into ETRMs rapidly increasing. And those ETRMs, which some of them designed 20 or 30 years ago, were never designed for that. So it's sparking a requirement to build ancillary services around an ETRM to protect the ETRM from these volume increases, because if trades are flowing through an ETRM and you're waiting 90 minutes for your positions to pop out the other side, or your positions to flow into your operations and logistics systems, you get into operational procedure issues where a trader is flying blind near the end of day, 90 minutes without seeing their trades, or a operations and logistics team needing to make a nomination and missing gate closure, which then costs the business, and also materially potentially changes the cost of gas and power in a location. So there are significant challenges at the moment, and a lot of what we're working around is to kind of remediate those challenges and kind of decouple the ETRM out of that process.
Okay, great. So just catching you there around the existing of 3 ETRMs and a great trade life cycle. Well, how do the two fit together? I take it if you have multiple ETRMs and you've got a trade life cycle to execute on, there's a lot of duplication in effect there.
There is. I think the challenge comes in bringing all the data back together again. Avanade actually helped us build what's called our integration and reporting lab, almost I think 15 years ago. It's a challenge to support that activity. It's a challenge to deal with the onboarding of new commodities, because you have to change in multiple locations. And it's also a challenge to find people with the necessary skills. Whilst we work in technology, a lot of our people have domain-specific skills. Finding a developer, .NET person that understands futures, forwards, vol surfaces, FX rates is quite difficult. And those are the types of skills you need to be able to work on an ETRM.
Okay, so if you had the opportunity, and I think you do at SEFE, to redesign an enterprise architecture for trading IT today in 2024, what would that look like?
It's an easy question. It's a non-trivial answer. So about 3 or 4 years ago, Trading IT reviewed the increases in data, the increases in trading activity, and we could already see almost 4 or 5 years ago that our existing landscape wasn't going to be fit for purpose. So we sat down as a team and we spent time envisioning what we called trading VNext. I know it's super geeky, which is the next evolution of the trading landscape. And part of that thinking process was to bring in some of our team that have worked in kind of F1, other commodities, financial services, streaming companies, and bring a lot of those learnings and knowledge from organizations that have to deal with low latency real-time data. And what we kind of centered on and arrived on is a landscape that kind of decouples the ETRM as your golden source. Think of your hub and spoke, decouples the ETRM, and at its heart has a messaging layer that allows data to move freely through your organization, getting data to the right system at the right time. However, that comes with some caveats. The challenge that you have is that our industry is wide and varied. The data requirements are demanding, and as a result, when you receive data in its raw format, it's largely unusable. So you have to spend a lot of time improving the quality of the data and getting it to a position where it can be used by your business operational processes. So we have this concept of best available view of the data, and when data arrives initially, fundamentally it's in its raw format, and over the life cycle of the deal, over the life cycle as it moves through the trading life cycle, the quality of that data also improves until it gets to specific points in our business operations. Like, for instance, we have an end of day process. That is kind of the official end of day where we have official prices, official market valuations that we then use to drive a lot of the decision making and financial and regulatory reporting that we need to do. So our modus operandi is to slowly move from this ETRM being the sense of the world, to a data-driven architecture that's near real-time. I don't think we can ever be kind of super low latency and real-time for everything, but I do think that's the way we're taking it. I think I mentioned this to you before. It feels like we've gone on a plane in London with all the parts for a new plane, landed in New York, but we've rebuilt the plane in mid-flight and haven't crashed it. That's kind of what it feels like at the moment.
Fascinating, Cuan, fascinating. So with that ETRM moving from being a monolith and all-encompassing the final source of truth to being very modular and having sophisticated technology around it, which provides that sort of abstraction, APIs, service bus, messaging, real-time access to data, is the enterprise architecture that people need to be thinking about when they think about trading IT in 2024? I
think so. Personally, the SEFE has done a lot of engineering over the last 10 years. We've already taken components out of an ETRM to optimize the business processes, trade validation, trade confirmation. We've already done that and used what APIs and integration points existing ETRMs had. I admit that it's not the most sophisticated activity, and I would say the existing ETRM landscape that we see, most of them traditionally don't have great APIs, which is obviously a challenge from an operational perspective, a testing perspective, etc. But we have managed to implement a lot of those activities, which has helped eradicate some of the pain that we've seen with massive volume increases of trades and data.
Okay, well that's a great way of dovetailing into my next question, which is testing. Is testing with ETRM a myth? I mean, can you really get some decent test coverage? Is it worth its weight? Is it valuable, or is it just a technical effort wasted?
It's a good challenge. I think this is something that SEFE has grappled with over a number of years. My team will know very clearly how we've dealt with that, and some of our partners have helped us massively as well. I think the challenge is that automation in a vendor-based or any form of ETRM is traditionally not baked into your historic ETRMs that exist, which makes it a challenge. I think there's a number of challenges. It's not just the testing. I think it's also the environment management, the automation of services, etc. At SEFE, we invested significantly into the automation and environment management provisioning to help us be more flexible in releasing and have a lot more agility with respects to how we can deliver change for our business. So that's helped incredibly. We've also invested in test automation, and I think this is the challenge. This is when because the APIs aren't great and ETRMs are fundamentally black boxes. This is the difference between I would say an art and a science, and how much you invest will obviously be up to each organization. I would recommend some form of it, and we do have automation regression tests, but unfortunately there's still a significant amount of manual testing that goes on.
Okay, and that manual testing, however, is more business focused rather than more technology focused. Okay, well that's the key factor then there. So with ETRMs being what they are, and you having significantly invested in modernizing them and bringing that mentality of abstraction, tell us a little bit about environments. Tell us about what is the scale of the size of the problem. How long does it take to provision environments? How quickly can you spin up projects and mobilize them?
A few years ago when I joined SEFE, my initial role was dev manager. We did a review of kind of automation, release management, and we also looked at the failure scenarios that we had in production, which obviously impacts our business. And we had quite a high proportion of failures associated with releases, and we had a significantly low amount of automated releases. So, you could see the correlation immediately. And over the last 5 or 6 years, we've invested heavily in automation, not only our ETRM landscape, but also our kind of deal lifecycle tools, such that you can automatically provision a lot of the software onto the environments with the zero human intervention. And that has pretty much eliminated all failures associated with releases. To kind of give you a sense of scale, I think when I joined, we did 300 automated releases annually across all environments and all applications back in 2014, and 10 years later, I think we are on track to do north of 170,000 releases across all environments, probably up to about 200,000 releases annually. I think we're doing 600 to 700 releases a day to our various environments across 1,400 servers. We are still largely an on-premise system, but over time we are moving into the cloud as that opportunity presents itself.
170,000 to 200,000 releases. I mean, that is incredible. If today your ability to tap into the volatility is your ability to go fast, then you've cracked it.
To some extent, yes. I think we're still constrained by the legacy application stack that we have. We obviously are largely on-prem. There's a lot of vendor applications, a lot of bespoke applications. So this is part of the solution to help our teams deliver capabilities to our business as quickly as possible. But then we still have physical constraints around having to change things through multiple systems, integration testing, etc. So you still have issues, but we've largely removed that part of the problem.
So Cuan, define DevOps for, what does DevOps mean to SEFE? What does DevOps mean to your team and you?
It's a good question. I think everyone has their own version of DevOps, but let me explain how we in trading IT use DevOps. It was clear that we needed teams and capabilities that were specialized in smoothing the path to production. We wanted to automate and remove the opportunity for people to make human errors, and also speed up the ability to kind of provision an environment. So we can, for instance, our ETRM environments, we can provision an ETRM environment in minutes, seconds, and that will be a complete replica of production, databases, all the data, so that you can either performance test or you can review a production issue, etc. And that's done in seconds. That would not be possible without our DevOps team. So that team is responsible entirely for ensuring and supporting the delivery teams on smoothing that path into production and making it as seamless and an operational stable as possible.
Okay, so near real-time spinning up of environments, and you're still on premise. 70,000 plus production releases. I mean, that's changed the game. Still on premise.
It's a challenge, yes. I do still think, just to kind of preempt your question, that the cloud is going to bring value. We have had some consultancies that suggested we go lift and shift. As idiotic as that may seem, somehow they managed to try and push that forward. Fortunately, the likes of Avanade were engaged to actually be our partner through delivery. And we spent a lot of time looking at the longer term benefits of where we truly see cloud adding value. And I think it's critical for people to understand there needs to be a value add, and it's not just cost, it's also value to the organization and operational stability. So what we have focused on is looking at some elements of lift and shift where there's no value, but the core value for us is going to be primarily in taking legacy apps, modernizing them, and then moving them into the cloud where you can use things like containerization, functions, etc. So that's one benefit for the cloud. The other area that we see significant benefit is new features that exist. So Azure Fabric, a whole lot of new capabilities around AI and data processing, etc. So that's the other area, and those will kind of be for our new build capabilities to support not only the front office, but also our middle and back office that are crying out for new tools.
Brilliant. Yeah. So it's very much interesting that you said that, right? Because historically, the move to the cloud was very much, let's pack our bags, the lease is coming up on the data center before we shift into this new data center in the cloud. Yeah. But you've sort of tackled that problem differently in the way you're thinking about modernization from the outset, really understanding how the applications need to be rebuilt for the cloud to get the most value out of them. How do you see that benefiting you longer term? What do you think that the drivers for the change within the applications could look like, given those applications were never built for the cloud?
Yeah, it's posing a challenge. I'm not gonna lie. We are a lot later than most of our competitors moving into the cloud, which has actually been quite beneficial because we've managed to learn from a lot of the mistakes that the industry has made. My CIO is very strong on us being a cloud-first company, and I think that is still the principle that we want to go after. But to get there, you need to make some steps to be able to really realize the benefits. So for instance, a .NET three-tier application, web app, SQL, won't natively just go into a containerized solution. It won't natively just support load balancing in the cloud. You need to invest engineering to be able to take those legacy apps, move them so they're kind of cloud friendly, move them to .NET Core, etc. We are mostly a Microsoft house, so that investment still needs to happen. We are on that journey, and we've targeted a few apps that we've already started moving, and we've moved some core apps already into the cloud. So I think it's a journey, but it needs to be driven by like a decision tree based on the value proposition. And value isn't just cost, it's value to the organization, performance benefits, scalability up and down, and whichever dimension you want to cut on it. So I think those are the types of things that I think we need to consider when moving into the cloud.
It's such a delight to see your passion in engineering, right? Because sometimes the driver very much is to get it done. It's on my agenda, but you sort of look at the problem from an engineering perspective, think about the value back to the business before you go off and invest in it. How do you see that changing then in the future with the demands of the business growing, the book of work increasing, and still being engineering focused? Do the teams have the same mentality? I mean, you said there's people, process, tools to look after, and DevOps very much includes all of them. Talk to us a little bit about the culture.
So just taking a step back, I think trading in the past was a support function for the trading business. Now trading requires, to be successful and competitive, needs a technology partner that can deliver value to meet their business requirements. So the decisions always, first and foremost, need to support the activity of our business so that they can achieve commercial advantage, competitive advantage, and generate GM. Secondary to that, as a technology department, we still need to be cognizant that we have to support an estate. We have costs associated with that. And I think the team have spent a lot of time looking at what we have at the moment. We have largely legacy estates, and it's important that they are empowered to make the right decisions based on the tools and systems that they look after. So we have multiple teams that look after one or many applications, and they're best enabled to make that decision. We have helped them try come up with a decision tree on which choice you make, but it needs to obviously factor in the fact that, and I come back to value, it has to deliver value to the organization. It cannot just be a cost-driven discussion.
So I remember 10, 15 years back sitting in the office in Kingston writing code for gathering data for Continental, and you're right, the volumes of curves were still huge in the organization than any competitor out there. But it's sort of great to see that as that data has been commoditized, you've leapfrogged ahead to getting better at getting the value out of that data. Is it fair to say, Cuan, there's a culture change here, right, of being data-driven? And if so, where does SEFE rank in that culture? It's
a good question. I think data is first and foremost what we do as an organization. I often joke with my IT teams that we're a data-first company that manages risk and then happens to trade on the back of that. The reality is everyone in the organization is empowered to use data as they see fit, which is one of the benefits of working at SEFE. I wouldn't say that we're perfect in how we do the analysis, etc. We still get it wrong, but I think a lot of people, not only the IT teams, but the business teams are empowered to make those decisions. We've seen a significant growth in citizen compute. These days, every person that walks through the door, every new hire that you have, probably has some kind of coding skills from school, university, etc. And I see that trend continuing. So the demands, the usage of IT, the usage of technology, the coding is no longer just within the remit of your technology teams. It's across the business. So having people that are empowered to make decisions around data, having access to that data, so making sure that it's available to all and democratizing data is super important. A lot of the programs that the technology teams and trading IT have been working on over the last couple of years is to make that data more readily available, that's attributed so you can make intelligent decisions, but not have to be, not sit between the business and the data such that they can't perform their role.
So we talked about data, and I think the key point that you highlighted there is liberalizing that data for everyone, right? Because innovation doesn't just rest with the person that is sitting on the desk, they're claiming to be IT. Innovation can come from anywhere, right? But more so business know their business better than IT, and therefore if they have faster access to data, then they could be innovating solutions themselves, self-serving themselves.
Yep.
What is the volume of data we're talking about here?
So it's a good question. In IT or trading IT, I would say that we collect north of about 70,000 curves daily. The granularity of those curves sit between 15 minutes and longer, and can go out 15-minute granularity for up to 20 years into the future. And those can be published every minute, every 5 minutes, every hour. So the volumes are incredible. They are only growing. On top of that, we also have acquisition of data outside of IT that then tends to move into the IT landscape. I think we see data in kind of 3 different lenses. Typically it's the same data, but just at a different time in its life cycle. So you'll have exploratory data that an analyst is using, the modelers are using, the quants are using, maybe algo trading are using for back testing. And that data they may collect themselves to make a decision, to be able to really truly find out if that data is of value. And over time, that data then may become part of the core operational processes. And at that point in time, it then traditionally moves into what I call your operational data set. The operational data set is your traditional area that IT looks after. So your end of day prices, your vols, your FX rates, interest rates, trading data, market data, etc. And then you have another set of data, which is your strategic data that's probably used by your back office teams, which may not have the same operational requirements. So you may only need it in 30 days or D+1, as opposed to your trading teams that might want it within 60 seconds. I haven't found a solution for all of them yet. We're still working through it, but it is something that I think provides lots of challenges in an organization to be able to articulate and find the right solutions.
So let's touch on the back office bit then, because I guess access to data from a back office, middle office, finance perspective is really important, and maybe not real time, but equally cleansed, curated, trusted data is important to them. Is back office, middle office still a manual function? Do you see in today's world a changing landscape on how they operate as well?
A good question, and the reason why it's a good question is that the drive in systematic trading has increased volumes not only in the front office, but it's cascaded through our landscape, and that's also then impacted the middle and back office. So when we've had situations where maybe a deal cannot be supported through our traditional ETRMs and tools, it may be done manually off system in an Excel spreadsheet. As those volumes increase, it exacerbates that problem. So you can't just invest in the front office space only. You need to invest in the support functions that also support the deal lifecycle, which is your middle and back office. And we've seen a lot of challenges, especially in our road to digitization around this space, because the volumes of off-system deals, the volumes of manual processes have increased dramatically, which is obviously impacting the organization. And we've needed to invest and continue to invest and have plans to invest over the course of the next 2 or 3 years to support those functions in achieving their goals so they can support the front office and the trading business.
Okay, so we talked about volumes of curves and the granularity of that. Give us a feel for trade volumes. What do they look like in the system, what in a typical day?
Interesting question, because in an organization, you have external facing trades, and because we are a multinational company, we have internal facing trades as well. We have trades between desks. Our external trades are significant. I can say that on average, what we've seen over the last 3 to 6 months is 100% increase in our trade volumes, month on month, our annual trade volumes. So that is caused significant pressure on our tools and our teams. It's also consumed kind of the headroom that we had for a lot of our applications very quickly. So when you had a 5-year roadmap to be able to support trade volumes and you're doing an annual consumption monthly, which was never forecast before, it puts us under significant pressure. We've also seen significant volume increases, not only with our digital and systematic trading, because they will trade around how the market behaves. And what you will have seen, especially if you close to the power markets, is that the clip sizes have dropped down to the absolute minimum. So the reason for that is that it's systemized, it moves a lot faster, and as you move up and down the curve, you try and extract as much value out of those trades as possible to maximize GM. The other area that's probably been a big driver internally is that with the changing market behaviors. So for instance, when you're trading around a PPA, and when you're having updates that are coming through every 60 seconds, position moves every 60 seconds that are modeled as trades. In the past, it might have only been 5 trades. Now you're seeing 6, 7, 8,000 trades for a set of PPAs that you wouldn't have had a few weeks ago. So the volumes are also driven not only by market behavior, but the underlying physical assets that they're associated with. And then the third area that we see significant growth is interbook trades between desks, etc. They typically are multiple of your external trades, so it exacerbates the problem. So not only in your ETRMs, but in all the downstream systems as well.
So there is a fact floating around that you have the biggest ETRM database, the biggest from the peer group. Is that true?
Yeah, so according to the vendor, it is true. However, it's not something I'm massively proud about. That has got a lot to do with how we've set up our archiving, our backups. However, that vendor is helping us to reduce that over the course of the year, and by the end of this year, early next year, that problem will go away. We'll be well within the pack by that stage.
Incredible. I think it's important to fully qualify that, to be able to spin up environments with production data in real time, and yet have the biggest database on the block is still quite an achievement.
Yeah, I think that was, all credit to our DevOps team, our SQL team, our infrastructure team. They spent a lot of time engineering, and this is why my statement around not everything can move to the cloud got us really close to the tin. And deduplication using physical hardware capabilities has allowed us to copy back 17 terabytes of databases within 60 seconds, replicate it, and not actually have a material impact on the underlying physical hardware. So there's things you can do in physical data centers that you can't do in the cloud. You could do it, but it's probably come at significant costs as well, right? So that's where the benefits you need to investigate those.
So you run your ETRM with the SQL backend. There are others in the peer group that run their ETRMs with an Oracle backend. When moving to the cloud, do you see one having advantage over the other?
If I'm honest with you, the data backend is something that should be a commoditized element. I think for certain applications, you need to take advantage of real key application capabilities, maybe in SQL 2021 or whatever the instances, and column and row store indexes and all of those things. I think for our more vanilla applications where we don't have a massive data set and not a massive user base, I think you could easily go to your your native cloud offerings, and we're agnostic at that point in time. It doesn't really matter what's underlying it.
Okay, so you mentioned, Cuan, that the data first culture prevails across the organization, and if that is the case, how do you see algorithmic trading? Is algorithmic trading critical to how you operate the business?
I think it's changed dramatically. SEFE actually embarked on its first systematic trading all the way back, even before I joined, 2014, 2015, and it was quite a small capability back then, but there was a serious investment probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it was the first joint commercial IT team where they all sat together, and it was necessary to embed the technology team with the business team to be able to build what we call our digital capability. I would say that the capabilities that team has delivered, which is highly impressive, has fundamentally changed how SEFE runs trades through its systems at the moment. I would say a significant proportion of all of our trades run through our algo systems at the moment, and that's to support the desks. And then there's also a significant investment in the algo team developing their own strategies to generate their own P&L. So it's something that we continue to work on. It's obviously still a challenging environment. I think the industry as a whole has a problem where a lot of our interfaces, exchanges are not fundamentally designed for systematic access. So some of the tools that we use are fundamentally designed for screen-based trading, which introduces its own set of challenges. But I think it's an environment that's changing rapidly, and this is why your technical strategy for your technology strategy for your trading team needs to also align with the strategy that has been driven by the business. No longer are they some things that can be done independently. They all should be one and the same strategy to align, because I think moving forward to be successful in energy trading in Europe and the rest of the world, your technology is just your ticket to the game. And if you really want to succeed, you really need to lean heavily on your technology teams.
So talking about algos a little bit further, right?
Yep.
There is the algo execution, and then there's value obtained.
Yep.
And they're slightly different. What's your view on that?
So we separated internally in SEFE with what we call value creation and value capture. Value capture is taking tasks that potentially the traders would have done automatically or done themselves, clearing out their positions for the end of the day, maybe iceberg orders. And those tools are there to support the desks so that the standard types of things that they would do can be completely automated with additional signal information, with additional information that can help make their trading strategy more successful. So that if they are then doing manual trades, it will be done, those will be your high value trades. And then we have value creation, which is the creation of new strategies that are independent of the desks, run entirely through our digital team to be able to add value. They are taking significant signals from across our organization through our signal farm to then be able to add value and generate GM. And obviously it's like everything, it's a work in progress, but it's still one of our most successful kind of joint venture teams.
So GM being gross margin there.
Correct, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So I know you're not going to answer this question, but I'm going to ask anyway.
Yeah.
How many signals in a day?
Oh, there's a lot. And our signal farm is growing day on day, and the teams working on it are including significantly more signals from across the groups. And also we are segregated between trading and sales, also looking at bringing together the organization. So I can't give exact numbers. It is growing. It is one of those things that I think is paramount for the organization, because having a centralized location where you see all your signals helps drive the digitization of all your activity. And I think, the modern day trading firm, unless you have some form of systematic trading, you'll really struggle. And I think, over the next 3 to 5 years, the day of the purely screen-based traders will be gone, because it's moving way too quickly. And the market shows that. You can see significant volume increases in orders in pretty much every market, gas, power, EX, across the industry over the last 4 years. And we've seen, instead of linear growth, we've seen exponential growth. So every market participant is doing that now. So without having that, and obviously that's a key dependency on your technology stack, your teams and the capabilities, you're going to struggle in the market.
Great answer. So what are the big bets that SEFE and you are making for the next 12, 18, 24 months?
So, I think the challenges are, as we've already kind of discussed, is the volume increases. And I don't think those problems are going away. In fact, I think those problems are going to quadruple or go exponential over the next 3 to 5 years. So our big bets are making sure that our state can cope with this unprecedented growth, not only trade volumes, order volumes, data required for decision making, but then also making sure that we then have tools to be able to utilize those. So those are one of our key focuses on. The other key focus that we are looking at is improving our ETRM estates. I think it's paramount that we have modern ETRMs to support us, but also decoupling the ETRMs out of the process flow, so they're no longer a bottleneck to operational processes. And that's a key element to be able to support future strategic energy trading and energy transition activities the organization is looking at. And then finally it's also the optimization of our data center movement into the cloud associated with business value. I think that is another key area that we're working on. The one thing that we didn't discuss, but I think it puts pressure on the IT teams, and I don't see it going away, is that I personally believe that citizen compute is going to increase even more. And I am completely okay with that. I think we need to, as a technology department, help our business on how best to use technology, but also give them the tools so that they can be liberated from the standard constraints that IT would have, so that they can be successful in their job and also help drive value in the business. So I think I used this statement with you earlier. I think taking a legacy estate and trying to apply new trading behaviors on it is akin to getting in a Ford Fiesta with a 1.3 litre engine, racing down the Autobahn and hoping that you can do 300 kilometers an hour. The reality is you're going to need to do some significant modifications to that vehicle to get you there. And I think every organization and a lot of our competitors are all facing very similar problems, is that how do you decouple key operational processes with the volume increases to minimize impacts on your business and also support them in allowing them to do what they need to do.
So how far do you think you are on that transformation now?
Oh, that's a tough question. I really don't know. I think we've still got a long way to go. I think we've got a lot of good pockets. Our digital team is excellent and excelling and core to the future of the organization. And then I think we have programs that are decoupling elements through our landscape that are quite far advanced and still have a way to deliver. But I think we're on the right track. Probably need a little bit more breathing time to get there, but in trading you never get that opportunity.
So tell me a little bit about AI then. Gen AI is the new kid on the block.
Yep.
Everyone's talking about it. Machine learning's existed for as long as trading's existed. Then you've got deep learning, and then you've got everything in between. How have you been using AI, and what's your contrarian view on AI?
So I think a lot of trading organizations, and SEFE is no different to anyone else. We've been using machine learning and elements of AI for best part of 10 years, and it's well baked into our deal lifecycle, our decision making, a lot of the optimization processes that we already use. But those are quite constrained, well-known problems that you can apply that technology for. I think what you're talking about is Gen AI, and personally I am quite pessimistic in the short term around Gen AI. I think whilst it's incredibly interesting, I've yet to see real business cases that add value within trading. I think it's a little bit of C-suite catnip. I think the fear-mongering, the Gartners of the world have probably scared most execs into saying, we have to do this. I do think longer term, when we get cognitive Gen AI that physically understands not only the energy assets, but our domain, we will start to see significant value. And what I mean by that is that there is probably models that can be developed in the future that will massively improve how we optimize not only our usage of power, but the value that we extract out of it, which will help not only generate more profits, but also help the group and most of Europe's demand to move to net zero. So I think it will play a significant role in the future. One of the ethical things that I think we need to think about, though, is that the power usage associated with Gen AI mustn't outweigh the benefits that we see. You can start to see already forecasts coming out where American data centers are forecasting a 10 to 12% increase in power consumption just for Gen AI. And I think the challenge is, there is an ethical question around how much we use versus the benefits society and a company will get from it. So, that's something that I think we need to think about as well.
Brilliant. I think the core point there around that the models need to be trained on your data and trained on the knowledge of energy is a missing fact. And when that ontology is baked into the models, they'll be far more turnkey usable from the outset, therefore more applicable to these sort of use cases.
Correct. I think with regarding the other AI elements, I think there's a lot of value to be found probably in your back office and support functions where we've already spoken about a lot of manual activity going on. So I definitely see the value there. I think what I was really focusing on is on the front office trading, decision making, optimization in that space. I think that's the sweet spot that probably will come in time, but I don't think it's there yet.
How far are we away from it?
Who knows?
So, well, I would be wasted opportunity, Cuan, if we didn't pick your brain on what are your top 3 predictions for the energy markets and the associated technology trends.
I think we've really touched on it already. I think volumes are going to increase. I think that society's drive to move to net zero will force the energy markets to be a lot more efficient in how it uses power, how we utilize it and how we optimize it. That, as a result, will realize itself in the trading organization as an explosion in data, the timeliness of the data, the latency of that data, and how you use that data. So I truly believe that the volumes of data will increase well beyond anything that we've ever imagined. So that's point 1. Point 2, I also believe that, and this is my contrarian view, I think the cloudification of a lot of networks will decloudify for certain components of your estate that are physically linked to the assets and the non-functionals that asset brings. So what I mean by that is that when you have something that is very low latency, maybe a battery releasing its power, you need to be physically connected to it and you have to be very fast. And what we'll probably see are systems and asset dispatch systems and algo trading systems that get closer to the tin so they can respond quicker to that. And I think we get onto the very thin edge of cloud, and there's a cost benefit analysis there. And we also all have, a lot of us all have strong infrastructure teams that still sit there. You know, you have these guys that understand how to optimize data pipes, how to optimize optical fiber and SQL instances, etc. And it would be a travesty to waste that as well. So I also think that we will see a decloudification of some of our assets. That's not to say the cloud goes away. That's not what I mean by that. And then I think the other thing that we'll probably see is, and I've already mentioned this, I think that with the liberalization and democratization of data in organizations and APIs and having these great tool sets available, the new employees of an organization will become more familiar with it, and no longer will citizen compute just be Excel and VSTOs, and it's people bringing tool sets that they have that they've learned at university or other organizations, using that data more efficiently without needing to rely on a developer in IT to be able to do it, and actually delivering value to the business a lot quicker through the use of technology, but on their desktops. So I think those are probably my top 3 kind of trends that I see happening over the next couple of years.
Amazing. Well, we'll have to bring you back on the podcast to just back test those predictions then. So I want to give you an opportunity to plug something.
So this is something that we've spoken about. SEFE is a revitalized company, rebranded a few years ago, but the key is certainly in the name. Securing energy for Europe is what we embody, what our CIO and CEO and C-suites have been talking about to the industry, and that's also trickled down into our organization. It's an organization that empowers people to make decisions, to make the right decisions. We have a significant investment program over the next couple of years to support the activity. We have massive strategic goals around hydrogen as well that you probably see in the press, and along with that is the technology required to support our trading arm. So, whilst we probably are not a well-known brand, I think we have quite an established capability already, and it's quite an exciting growth area. Energy is an incredibly exciting growth area, and along with that, technologists need to understand that technology is the driver for that.
Cuan, I've really enjoyed the chats. Thank you so much for coming down and sharing all of this valuable insights with us and the audience. And we hope to bring you back on the podcast in 18 months' time to see if the checkered flag around the transformation journey is completed and what lies ahead in that journey.